There are moments in life that are not written in history books, yet they echo through the soul of those who were present with awareness. July 7, 2025 was such a moment not characterized by earthquakes or celestial signs, but by the silence that rests between every breath. The stunning truth revealed that day was not concealed in thunder or mystery. It was never truly hidden to begin with. For those who were still, who were present, the veil was lifted, not by effort but by surrender. Truth does not come to those who chase it like prey. It comes to those who become empty enough to receive it. That is the way. The way is not about finding. The way is about remembering. Remembering that truth is not something external, waiting in a far-off land or locked away in some ancient manuscript. The way is not something external, waiting in a far-off land or locked away in some ancient manuscript. It is planted deep within every human being. But because the surface of our lives is so often in turmoil, we miss the simple reflection of what already exists. On that day, many searched the skies for answers, turned pages of sacred books, refreshed headlines, hoping for an event to validate what their spirit already whispered. But what was needed was not more noise, it was quiet. By the readiness to hear the one answer that had always waited in the silence. Stillness is not the absence of motion, it is the presence of clarity. A turbulent mind, filled with thoughts, expectations, and fear, cannot hear the whisper of truth even when it is shouted. But a quiet mind, even in the midst of chaos, can perceive what lies beyond form and sound. July 7 was a test, but not the kind the world expected. It was a test of inner presence, a divine calling that asked, "Are you still enough to listen? Can you hear what has no sound? Can you see what is not visible? Can you know what is not taught but remembered?" And so, many missed it. Not because the truth was not revealed, but because their minds were elsewhere, distracted by opinions, forecasts, the movement of markets, the rising of tensions, the falling of governments. All of these things appeared real and urgent, but they were not the message. They were merely the noise surrounding it. For the truth revealed was not about what is outside. It was a mirror held up to the soul. The mirror revealed this: you are not what you have, not what you do, not what others think of you. You are not the sum of your past, nor the fear of your future. You are the one who observes, the one who remains when all else changes. You are the breath, not the storm. You are the space, not the clutter. You are the awareness that has no name, yet gives rise to all names. This truth has always been near, but July 7 was the day it was unsealed again, not by a decree from above, but by a deep resonance within those who were prepared. Preparation, however, did not require study or ritual. It required sincerity, honesty with oneself, willingness to stop pretending, willingness to pause. A tree does not grow by pulling its branches, it grows by being rooted. And so the human being matures not by chasing enlightenment, but by becoming deeply grounded in the present moment. The unsealing of truth was not for the extraordinary, it was for the ordinary who dared to be awake. It was for the mother who breathed deeply before comforting her child. It was for the elder who sat silently in prayer without words. It was for the man who, amidst a world rushing past him, chose to sit quietly and feel the wind. For in that wind, the truth spoke. The voice of truth is not foreign. It does not come from outside. It comes from the most intimate part of who you are. And so, those who heard it did not hear something new. They heard something ancient, yet familiar. Like remembering the scent of a childhood memory long buried beneath years of distraction. Like waking from a dream and realizing you've been asleep your entire life. It was not a message to the intellect. It was a message to the heart, a call to return. Return to simplicity, return to presence, return to being. Like remembering the afternoon gone, there was some sign that happened that day. They say there was no sign, but they only reveal their own distance from what is subtle. A single drop of rain means nothing to a man holding an umbrella, but everything to the soil longing for water. The truth is like that drop. It nourishes only the open. It reveals itself not through volume, but through resonance. When your inner world is in harmony, even the softest truth is enough to transform your entire life. What made that day powerful was not that it changed the world outside, it changed the world within. For those who aligned, clarity returned, and with clarity came responsibility. To no longer live in contradiction, to no longer pretend, to no longer delay becoming who you are always meant to be. That is the cost of truth. It does not demand sacrifice of possessions, but of illusions. It does not take from you, it strips away what was never yours to begin with. The truth that was unsealed on July 7, 2025 cannot be summarized in words. Words point to it, but cannot contain it. It was a realization, a shift in the center of gravity, from thought to awareness, from fear to presence, from confusion to simplicity. Those who felt it began to walk differently, not faster, not with more ambition, but with quiet certainty. Their gaze softened, their breath deepened, their reactions slowed. For when truth is revealed, the soul no longer needs to defend itself. It simply is. We live in a time where knowledge is everywhere, yet wisdom is rare. That day brought no new knowledge, but it stirred the forgotten wisdom of the soul. A wisdom that cannot be taught, only awakened. A wisdom that does not argue, but understands. A wisdom that does not rush, but endures. Those who carry it do not need to prove anything. Their life becomes the proof. The proof that even in a noisy world, stillness remains possible. That even in a chaotic world, peace remains accessible. That even in a broken world, healing remains inevitable. The stunning truth unsealed on that day was not that something changed. It was that nothing ever needed to. What was always true simply became visible. And that is what shook the hearts of the awakened. Not fear, not prediction, but beauty. Beauty too profound to explain, too sacred to analyze. It was a calling home, a whisper of grace, a reminder that the greatest truths do not come after long journeys, but after a single moment of full presence. And for those who received it, life has not been the same. Not because the world changed, but because they finally saw it as it is. When truth is unsealed, it does not march into the world with the sound of drums or the roar of armies. It enters quietly, like the morning light that touches the mountaintops before it reaches the valleys. On July 7, 2025, what descended upon the world was not a declaration, not an ultimatum, not a spectacle. It was an invitation. And in that invitation was a hidden test, not of knowledge, not of power, but of readiness to align. When something sacred is revealed, it does not demand belief, it offers presence. It does not force itself into the mind, it waits for the heart to open. This is the nature of divine truth. It knocks, but never breaks in. It beckons, but never shouts. It shines, but does not blind. So when the truth was unsealed, many stood before it and walked away unchanged, not because the truth lacked power, but because their minds were fixed elsewhere. We live in a time where belief is often confused with alignment. People say they believe, but their lives are filled with contradiction. They speak of peace, but act from fear. They quote wisdom, but live with resentment. They seek truth as entertainment, not transformation. Yet when the sacred is revealed, it calls for more than mental agreement. It calls for inner surrender. It asks not for affirmation, but for alignment. It calls for analyze, not for affirmative. It calls for intention. It calls for us alignment. It calls for affirmative. It calls for not for affirmity, but for the states of inner minds. What does it mean to align with the truth? It means to let go of the false, not by force, but by understanding. The tree does not cling to its dead leaves. When the season turns, they fall. And so too must we allow what no longer serves our soul to fall away. False identities, toxic patterns, shallow goals. These are not taken from us. They are invitations to release. But release is a choice, and that is why truth never forces itself upon the world. On that day, some looked outward and asked, what has changed? But the real question was, who is willing to change? Who is willing to return to stillness and allow the light to rearrange them from the inside? The truth unsealed was not new, it was eternal. But for the first time in generations, it was made accessible to those who were humble enough to receive it. And with that truth came a responsibility, not to debate, not to impress, but to embody, to become the living expression of what was revealed, to align thought, word, and action with what is pure and enduring. This is not a path of comfort. It is a path of inner honesty. It reveals all that is misaligned and calls you to recalibrate. There is a quiet power in those who choose alignment. They do not argue. They do not boast. They do not try to convert others. Their life becomes the sermon. Their presence becomes the proof. You can feel the stillness around them, not as absence, but as fullness. You can sense their decisions are not reactions, but responses, guided by clarity. When you speak to them, you feel heard. When you walk with them, you feel safe. When you observe them, you remember who you truly are. They are not superior. They are sincere. And that sincerity is what makes them magnetic. The stunning truth of July 7 did not aim to create followers. It aimed to awaken leaders. Leaders of their own inner world, captains of their own soul. Not to dominate, but to serve. Not to be seen, but to see clearly. These are the ones who aligned. And because of that alignment, they now move through life with a different rhythm. Alignment is not a destination. It is a discipline. A returning again and again to what is true, even when it is inconvenient, even when it is lonely, even when it requires letting go of everything familiar. But what is gained is not small. What is gained is integrity, wholeness, peace not dependent on circumstances, direction not confused by noise, clarity that pierces through illusion. Many resist alignment because they fear what it will cost. But they forget the cost of not aligning. A life of fragmentation, inner conflict, and subtle despair. The moment truth is unsealed, it does not demand belief, it reveals the consequences of continued denial. And those who are wise recognize this not as threat, but as mercy. For to live in alignment is not a restriction, it is liberation from the false. It is the shedding of masks. It is the breathing of clean air after years of suffocation. On July 7, 2025, the world was offered a choice. Many 2025, the world was offered a choice to continue as before, pretending, performing, surviving, or to pause, reflect, and realign with the deeper rhythm of life. Some chose distraction, others chose awakening. And now, as time moves forward, the effects will not be measured in news headlines, but in hearts. Those who aligned will begin to live differently. Not with more effort, but with more grace. They will no longer fight the current, they will move with it. Because they understand the current is not pushing against them, it is guiding them home. There is a current that flows through everything, through birth, through death, through joy and pain. When you are aligned with truth, you no longer fear the current, you trust it. You stop swimming upstream, you surrender to its wisdom. This surrender is not weakness, it is the highest strength. For it takes courage to let go of control, to trust what cannot be explained, to walk forward without needing every step mapped out. Alignment means letting your actions be guided by presence, not pressure. Letting your words come from authenticity, not approval. Letting your goals be shaped by purpose, not popularity. It is a different way of living, a quieter way. But it bears fruit that does not rot. It creates peace that does not depend on circumstances. It creates clarity that remains even in the storm. This is what was offered on that sacred day. Not a doctrine, not a system, a way, a return to the way. Those who felt it are not special. They are simply ready. Ready to stop resisting what is. Ready to live in harmony with what is true. Ready to let go of what once seemed necessary, but is now clearly a burden. This is the alignment truth calls us to, and though it begins inwardly, it transforms everything outwardly. It affects relationships, decisions, how you spend time, what you prioritize, how you respond to life. Those who aligned on July 7 may not look different, but they are no longer the same. They are no longer searching for what they already carry. They are no longer asking the world to complete them. They search for the world to complete them. They have remembered, and in that remembrance is freedom. In that freedom is peace, and in that peace is the power to live, not as the world demands, but as the soul intends. This is what happens when truth is unsealed. It does not control, it invites. It does not punish, it purifies. It does not command belief, it waits for alignment. And once that alignment begins, the rest unfolds with ease. like a flower that opens not because it is forced, but because the sun rises. The truth is that sun, it has risen. And now the question remains, will you turn your face toward it or remain in shadow? The invitation remains open. The door remains unlocked. The light has come. All that is left is to walk in it.